Researchers combed through nearly 3,000 marriages on Israeli kibbutzim. Almost none were between kids raised in the same children's house. Hundreds of unrelated children sleeping in one room, eating at one table, from infancy onward, not a drop of shared blood. And when they grew up, they didn't marry each other. Most of them never even dated each other. Nobody banned it. Parents actually hoped for it. A wedding between two of their own would have been perfect. The kids just didn't. They looked at each other and felt nothing romantic, ever. That's the Westermarck effect, and it sits at the center of a 100-year grudge match in psychology. One man predicted this in 1891. Another man, far more famous, spent decades insisting it was impossible. Start with the kibbutz, because nobody designed it as an experiment. That's exactly what makes it so useful. The early kibbutzim were built on a radical idea: raise the children collectively, not privately, inside the family. Kids slept in a communal children's house. Nurses handled the nights. Parents got a few hours each afternoon. Then the kids went back to their peer group. The same 6 or 8 faces year after year. Same crib room, same bath time, same table, same fights over the same wooden truck. They saw each other sick. They saw each other in tantrums. There was no version of each other left hidden. And no taboo attached to any of it. Legally, socially, they were strangers. Marrying one would have broken nothing. Sociologists genuinely expected the opposite. On paper, these kids were each other's ideal matches. Same values, same background, same jokes, parents already friendly. A matchmaker couldn't have built better pairs. Instead, when a researcher named Joseph Shepper went through the marriage records, the number came back effectively 0. Out of thousands of kibbutz marriages, pairings between peer group kids basically didn't exist. And here's the detail that turns this from a statistic into something you can actually feel. Ask them why, and they couldn't tell you. They didn't even say, "She's like a sister to me." They said things like, "I don't know, it's just weird. No rule, no disgust, just an absence." Something had quietly deleted an option from the menu before any of them got to read it. Now rewind to 1891, and a Finnish sociologist most people today have never heard of. Edward Westermarck was assembling an enormous book called The History of Human Marriage. Everyone at the time assumed the incest taboo existed because people wanted incest and society had to block it. Westermarck said no. He said the wanting isn't there in the first place. His claim, close domestic contact through early childhood, installs a kind of kill switch on later desire. Not a rule you're taught, a response that simply fails to switch on when you're 18. And the taboo, he argued, comes second. We write laws around the things that already repel us. It's an elegant idea. It also made him a target for the most famous man in psychology. Sigmund Freud built his entire architecture on the exact opposite assumption. In Freud's model, a child's first desire lands on whoever is closest: mother, father, siblings. That desire gets repressed, buried alive, and spends the rest of your life leaking out sideways. If Westermarck was right, that foundation cracks, so Freud went after him by name. In Totem and Taboo, Freud made an argument that sounds devastating and still gets quoted today. Why, he asked, would we need a law against something that nobody wants? You don't pass legislation banning people from eating gravel. The law itself proves the appetite. It's a great line. It's the kind of argument that wins the room before anyone checks it. And it won. Freud's version ruled psychology for roughly 70 years. Westermarck got filed under quaint Victorian guesswork and quietly dropped from the syllabus. There's one problem with the gravel argument, and it took decades for anyone to say it plainly. Laws also exist for things a small minority wants badly, and everybody else finds unthinkable. A taboo doesn't prove universal desire, it only proves that someone, somewhere, needed stopping. But arguments don't settle arguments. You need a case where the two theories predict different outcomes. And no one could ethically run that study, so they had to wait for history to run it by accident. The kibbutz was accident number 1, unrelated kids, raised as intimates, free to marry, and they didn't. Freud's model has nothing to say about that. There's no taboo present for anyone to repress. Westermarck's model predicts it precisely: proximity in childhood, silence in adulthood. And then, accident number 2 turned up in a filing cabinet in Taiwan. In the early 1970s, an anthropologist named Arthur Wolf started working through Japanese colonial household registers. These records were obsessive. Births, adoptions, marriages, divorces, all logged village by village for decades. And they documented a custom called minor marriage, in Taiwanese, shimpua, the little daughter-in-law. A family would adopt an infant girl and raise her alongside the son she was expected to marry. It was cheaper than a bride price, and the mother-in-law got to train her daughter-in-law from scratch. So the couple grew up in one house, sharing meals and chores, both knowing the wedding was coming. Same villages, same decades, same culture as couples who met as adults. Wolf had a control group handed to him, and the registers let him check what actually happened after the wedding, not what anyone claimed. Minor marriages showed markedly more divorce, fewer children born, more affairs, on both sides. Some couples had to be pushed toward the wedding night by parents waiting outside the door. The couples were willing, the families were willing, the bodies simply weren't interested. 2 accidents, 2 continents, 1 answer. Early proximity, not blood, is what shuts desire down. If that just rearranged something you thought you knew, that's exactly what this channel is for. Stick around, because now the real question starts. What exactly is your brain measuring here? It can't be genetics. Kibbutz kids weren't related. Adopted Taiwanese brides weren't related either. Your body has no way to read somebody's DNA across a dinner table. So it uses a proxy, a cheap, dumb, statistical shortcut that worked well enough for a very long time. The rule is roughly this: whoever was underfoot when you were very small counts as family. Done. In the world that shaped us, that guess was almost always right. Small groups, few strangers passing through. The kid sharing your floor really was your sibling, or close enough that the difference didn't matter. And the timing matters enormously. This isn't about how many years you've known somebody. It's about a window in early childhood, roughly the first handful of years of your life. Wolf's data pointed at something striking. The earlier the girl arrived, the weaker the marriage turned out later. Girls adopted as infants had the worst outcomes. Girls who arrived older did noticeably better. There's a dose to it. Earlier and closer means a stronger, more complete shutdown. Which means the switch isn't thrown by knowing someone. It's thrown by living inside their ordinary life. Not shared classes, shared bathrooms, shared boredom, shared stomach flu at 3 in the morning. And a shortcut that reads proximity instead of blood is going to misfire. It has no choice. Put a 5-year-old in a house with another 5-year-old, and the system can't tell the difference. Step-siblings raised together from early childhood often report the same flat nothing the kibbutz kids described. Same with the family friend kid, the one whose parents met your parents before either of you could talk. You've been to 20 of their birthdays. You know their kitchen better than you know most of your relatives. And they're objectively attractive. Other people say so out loud. You've heard it and abstractly agreed. And you feel absolutely nothing, not repulsion, just a flatness where the spark is supposed to be. That's the softest, most unshakable friend zone theirs, and neither of you ever chose it. Which quietly reframes a sentence people say all the time. We grew up together. It sounds like the opening of a love story. Usually, it's the reason there isn't one. Now notice what this implies about everybody else. Every person you meet as an adult, anyone you could plausibly fall for, is someone who wasn't there when you were 4. Attraction isn't only about who a person is. It's partly about when they showed up. The stranger at the party has one advantage. No childhood friend can ever get back. They arrived late. The kill switch never had anything to attach itself to. It also explains a small cruelty a lot of people have quietly lived through. You met when one of you was 4 and the other was 11. Only one of you was inside the window. So one feels nothing and one feels everything, and no amount of talking has ever fixed that. So what do you actually do with this? There's one useful thing, and it isn't a trick. Stop reading that flatness as a verdict on you or on them. It isn't chemistry failing. It's an old safety system doing its job on the wrong person, decades early, and it won't be argued with. A century ago, Westermarck said, "We don't crave the people we grew up beside." Freud buried him, and 2 accidents dug him back up. If this reframes something for you, subscribe. Next up, why you can love someone and stop wanting them. Your brain decided things about you before you had words, worth knowing which ones.